teaches children in wilderness school, but they're slow learners. Slow learners. And again, Exodus 17, the people, they're thirsty again. Thirsty again. You think by now they'd have some faith. Do you want to wait on God? At least pray to God. Look at 17 verse 3. The people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and our livestock die of thirst?" Now, the key phrase, their complaint, is found in verse 7. And the question is the Lord among us or what? Now, I read this and I think this is absolutely unbelievable. It's almost like comedy. After all that God has done, after all these 10 plagues and the parting of the Red Sea, the deliverance from Pharaoh, the destruction of the Egyptian army, giving them manna, giving them water. God, are you really there? Because it doesn't seem like it to me. You know, what have you done for me lately? But again, you look at it and God is patient. God continues to provide. He leads into Mount Sinai. And a number of chapters in Exodus are spent at Mount Sinai. And we're told in Exodus 24 that Moses is on the mountain with God for 40 days and 40 nights. And all the people have to do is wait. They're not hungry. They got manna. They're not thirsty. They got water. All they got to do is wait. And that's in your sermon notes. Just enough faith to wait. Look at Exodus 32:1. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses," now notice the language here, this fellow is kind of a disturbing thing. What's his name? Moses. Where's Moses? You know, we forgot about this guy. We don't know what happened to him. Now, the key word here in your notes is go. The key word here is go. Make us gods who will go before us. Because see, again, we don't want to wait. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? They're not interested in God's timing. They don't understand that God has a very good reason for wanting them to be rooted where they are and waiting for a while. They just want to get out of this desert thing, you know. We want to get to the milk and honey. Are we there yet? Are we there yet, you know? They wanted it so bad that they would prefer to have a golden calf. So they could manipulate this because they can't manipulate a living God. Because we have to obey Him. And I think so often, friends, that we're like this. Because with the golden calf, it's like Burger King. You get it your way. And it's amazing that Aaron, he gives in. And Aaron, he knew better, but he wouldn't stand up. So he makes this golden calf. And there's this tremendous irony. Moses is on the mountaintop with God getting the 10 Commandments. He's making a covenant with God. But simultaneously, while that's happening, the people of the covenant are down worshiping an idol and engaging in the kind of this sexually detestable practices that were a part of the worst kind of pagan fertility gods that God was trying to lead them away from in the first place. So Moses, he comes down from the mountain and he's not really happy. He's a little bit ticked off. And we see here another key lesson that Israel needs to learn in the desert. That it's time to take responsibility and grow up. They needed to grow up and take responsibility. And this is always a struggle for human beings. And we've seen it ever since page 1 in the Bible. Back in the Garden of Eden, God came to Adam and says, "Adam, did you eat the fruit?" And Adam says, "This woman that you gave me, this woman, God, it's your fault. You gave her to me." So now we have Moses. He confronts Aaron. Chapter 32, verse 21. Moses said to Aaron, "What did these people do to you that you led them into such a great sin? They must have did something bad. Did they twist your arm behind your back? Did they do that little thing where they drool spit over your face until it almost hit your nose and suck it back up until you did what you're supposed to do?" I did my sister all the time. What did they do to you, Aaron? It had to be something really bad. What did they do? What did they do? "Do not be angry." Notice this phrase, "my Lord." Aaron answered. Now, if you got a brother, would you call your brother my Lord? He's laid on pretty thick there, isn't it? "Don't be angry, my Lord," Aaron answered. "You know how prone these people are to evil." Now, look at the excuse that Aaron tries to get away with. They said to me, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. So I told them, whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off. Then they gave me the gold, and I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. It's unbelievable, Moses. Pop! A calf came out. I couldn't believe it. It just happened. And it's the same old tendency. It's just an inability to say, my bad. This is what I did. Here's my part. And the judgment of God is poured out on idolatry and immorality, and it's severe. And the people that reject God and defy God are killed, rather than infecting the whole community. And that's exactly what would have happened. So if you go over to chapter 33, in a sense, it says Moses, he says, I can't take this. God tells Moses, I can't take this. You go to the promised land, but I'm not going to go with you. God says, this is the kind of rebellion, the sin that's going to end the destruction of the whole community, and I don't want that. Moses, I don't want that. And the prayer of one man changes, as so often happens in the Old Testament. Moses says to God, God, please come with us. Exodus 33:15, this is a wonderful request. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. In other words, Moses says, God, you know what? I know this is a land that's flowing milk and honey. I know it's a special place that everybody wants to be, but God, if you're not going to be there, I want to stay with you. I want to be with you. I'd rather be a janitor in heaven than a king in hell. That's kind of what he's saying right here, I want to be with you. I'd rather live in a desert with you. To sit right here on this deserted mountain, be with you. You willing to say that to God? That's where I want to be, God. I don't want to be a king among them. I want to be with you. But they're slow learners. Turn over to Numbers chapter 11. It's all kind of in the same time period. Again, Moses wrote all these first 5 books. Numbers chapter 11. The Israelites, they've now left Sinai. Numbers chapter 11, verse 4. The rabble with them began to crave other food. And again the Israelites started wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and garlics. But now we've lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna. Again, the Israelites are right back on this food kick again, complaining about the menu. And by now it's starting to get to Moses. Look at verse 10. Moses heard the people of every family wailing, each at the entrance of their tents. Then the Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. He kind of goes on the offensive for the Lord here. He asked the Lord, why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you so that you put the burden on all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? Why do you tell them to carry them in their arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you promised on oath to their ancestors? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing to me, give us meat to eat. I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you're going to treat me, put me to death right now. If I found favor in your eyes, do not let my face go into ruin. So Moses basically says in modern terminology, get me Dr. Kevorkian on the phone, I've had enough of these people. I'm just ready to die. He says, put me to death. And friends, that's kind of a dangerous prayer to send up. And it really is. But again, God is still merciful with His whiners. But this time, I like it because there's a little bit of judgment with the mercy. Go down to chapter 11, verse 18. This is God speaking right now. God says, tell the people, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow, when you will eat meat. The Lord heard you when you wailed, if only we had meat to eat. We were better off in Egypt. Now the Lord will give you meat, and you will eat it. And you will not eat it for just 1 day, or 2 days, or 5 days, or 10 days, or 20 days, but for a whole month until it comes out your nostrils and you loathe it. Kind of sounds like a mother, You want it, you're going to get it. This is what you're getting. He says, because you have rejected the Lord who is among you and have wailed before Him, saying, why did we ever leave Egypt? God says, okay, I'm going to give you exactly what you've asked for. But you're going to begin to learn really fast a very important spiritual lesson. And this is something we can learn ourselves today. Sometimes it turns out that what you ask for isn't really what you need. Sometimes it turns out what you ask for isn't really what you need. So often we prayed for that thing. God, give me this thing, and then found out later, boy, that's not really what I wanted. We pray and we think that's the end of it, and God says no, and then later we find out that God was right. Sometimes it turns out that what you ask for isn't really what you need. And they would have the opportunity to discover, as any who would, that they asked for, it didn't really solve the problems to make them content. And they're going to have the opportunity to learn what their real problem was. Diagnosed in verse 20 by God. It says, you have rejected the Lord who is among you. God is right here today, but all you can think about is what you don't have. Well, things keep going downhill for the wilderness school. And if you notice how the people are together for a real long time, when you're together in close quarters, on family vacation or something, even the best families, you can start to get on each other's nerves after a while. Can you imagine a family vacation lasted for 40 years? Jiminy Crickets. Going down to chapter 12, verse 1, Numbers 12, 1 and 2. Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses, they asked? Hasn't he also spoken through us? And the Lord heard this. Now, in Cush, usually when they talk about Cush, what they're talking about is Ethiopia. Almost always when you see the word Cush, it's referring to the country we now call Ethiopia. And his wife, it might have been referring to Zephyr here, but it might be that Moses took a second wife. We really don't know. But we do know that Moses married a woman from Africa that was a black woman. And this was a racially mixed marriage. And Miriam and Aaron don't like this. And they actually start appealing to people's racial tendencies, is what they're doing. Can you believe this? Moses married a black woman. Moses married a Cushite. Now, think about what this does to Moses. On one side we got his wife. And on the other side we got his own brother and his sister assaulting and slandering her and him. And underneath their words is jealousy, because God has worked through Moses so strongly. And Miriam and Aaron are saying, aren't we special too? Didn't God use us too? Just like little kids. So God has to act. And He visits them in a cloud of glory, and He reaffirms Moses' leadership. But look at verse 10. When the cloud lifted from above the tent, there stood Miriam, leprous like snow. That's the judgment on her. She's leprous like snow. And if you go through and look in some of your Old Testament Bible commentaries, there's irony in this judgment. It's as if God's saying, okay, Miriam, you want white? I'll give you white. You know, if you don't like the color black, we'll give you white. Time to be white. And Aaron pleads with Moses to intercede for his sister and calls again, Moses, my Lord, once again. And Moses says the shortest prayer that's found in the Old Testament, verse 13, oh God, please heal her. And God does. But it takes 7 days, and I can kind of picture God saying, God, please heal her, but don't be in a hurry doing it. And it does. It takes 7 days, you know. But let me ask you, where does jealousy and envy come from? You see, Miriam and Aaron can't trust that God's love, that God's care, that God's reward and blessing in their lives will be enough. They can't trust Him that God's care is enough for today. That's truly enough. And all this stuff, it bubbles up inside them, like it does with you and me. God, make me special. God, make me recognized. All this comparison stuff, all this competition stuff, all this envy stuff. But I think underneath all this is really just the inability to say, all right, God, I'll take the manna that you got for me today. Okay, God, that's enough. And that brings us really to the great crossroads of the wilderness school. Numbers 13:1. The Lord said to Moses, send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I'm giving to the Israelites. From each ancestral tribe send out one of its leaders. So at the Lord's command, Moses sent out from them the desert of Paran. All of them were leaders from the Israelites. So Moses is sending out the 12 spies, and the 12 spies are gone for 40 days. And they come back and they file their report. You look at chapter 13, verse 27. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. It's a land of abundance. Here's its fruit. But the people who live